from about 12, excuse me, from 12 to 1:30. We'll do lunch, and then 1:30 to 4:30 we'll have our afternoon sessions. So we'll do some of the participant demos, lightning talks, have a break, and then kind of do some unconference sessions. So we have some additional topics to be voted on at the summit, and you can add topics. I figured I'd just do a little introduction to Blacklight. Again, I'm pretty new to Blacklight, so if I get anything wrong, please correct me. What is Blacklight? How do I see these? Oh, community the notes here. Let me see. Just get it right here. So what is Blacklight? I think when we talk about Blacklight, we kind of refer to the community as Blacklight. So this kind of open source collaborative platform and group of people that are building discovery solutions and library tools. But when we talk about Blacklight, we also are talking about the Rails engine that we've come to know and love and contribute to that helps us build really full functional and extraordinary discovery solutions. Right now we have support for Rails 7, Solar 9, Bootstrap 5, and Bootstrap 4 support will be dropped in Blacklight 9. And then I think there's an important distinction, I think, between discovery applications that we build versus digital repository applications. So when we talk about discovery applications, I think we're talking usually about Blacklight itself, which is our open source Solar user interface discovery platform. And when it comes to digital repository applications, we have ArcLight, which is a Rails engine built on Blacklight that supports discovery of archival material. And we have less governance than other open source communities, so development primarily is driven by community code sprints on related applications. And I have a couple links here. Community events, these are links to documents for each summit and Blacklight community event. Blacklight installations here, this is kind of a list of Blacklight installations with instructions on how to get your work featured on the Blacklight showcase page. So if your institution has a Blacklight app that's not already there, that might be a good idea to submit. And we have Blacklight inventory, which is also a list of Blacklight instances. So if you see your institution listed here, it would be useful for you to maybe go through and update, add, or remove your institutional usages. And we have a link here to previous Blacklight Summit recordings. And a brief overview of Blacklight 8 and 9. I've linked to the release notes here. Blacklight 8 itself was released in March 2023. Blacklight 7 was released in December of 2018, and there's a great upgrade guide from 7 to 8 that you can find in the Blacklight repository wiki. So like other semantically versioned applications or repositories, major versions are tied to breaking changes and the community's ability to maintain the software. So for example, Bootstrap 4 will be dropped in Blacklight 9. So following trends in the broader Ruby on Rails community. And all new commits to Blacklight are part of the 9.x release. So for example, some new stuff like advanced search being built into Blacklight, how JavaScript is packaged and stuff. I briefly will mention Blacklight sponsorship. This is kind of a culmination of institutions that contribute to the funding of the Code for Lib conference. And this is kind of the Blacklight entity, but it's not, not an institution, so it's still kind of nebulous. I won't go through and list all of these, but as far as our communication channels for today, we have our Code for Lib Slack. This is probably the best place to communicate. So we have an ArcLight channel, a Blacklight channel, Solar channel, Spotlight, Traject, and then we have other Slacks for Geo, Blacklight, Samvera, and ASF, which is the developer-focused channel for Lucene and Solar projects. We have a Blacklight development Google group and mailing list, and the project Blacklight GitHub is a great place to open and discuss work on active issues within the code base. And contributing new features and code fixes by submitting pull requests, and a great place to learn about how to use Blacklight, how to create a Blacklight project, and contribute to community documentation. The wiki has a ton of stuff that's useful. So if you're ever struggling with something in Blacklight, the wiki is a great place to look for information. Community calls, we have monthly Blacklight community calls that started in January 2022. So these are 50-minute calls kind of open to all to discuss Blacklight related work. They're held on the third Wednesday from 2 p.m. Eastern, or at 2 p.m. Eastern or 11 a.m. Pacific. We also have monthly Geo Blacklight community meetings that are held on the second Wednesday at 2:05 Eastern or 11:05 Pacific for 50 minutes. We have ArcLight community meetings quarterly. Next meeting is in November. The actual date is hidden behind these Zoom, November 4th, I see. And Spotlight community meetings will be once per quarter, so working groups kind of arrange their own meeting schedule. And then community adjacent, the LD4 Discovery Affinity Group meets every 2 weeks at 12 p.m. or 9 a.m. Pacific for an hour. And I think there's one more slide. Yeah, Blacklight plugins. So I thought I'd just briefly mention that there is a great ecosystem of Blacklight plugins, such as Advanced Search, Date Range Limit, Blacklight Gallery, Blacklight Maps, Blacklight Hierarchy, and you can see a bunch more. And the great thing about these plugins is, some of these are developed as plugins for specific usages, but they might end up actually being incorporated into Blacklight Core. So for example, that's what's happened with Advanced Search. And if you want to contribute to Blacklight, you can either commit back to Blacklight Core if you think the functionality will be used widely enough, or you can make your own plugin and find support from others in the community who might be needing the same functionality as you. So yeah, I think that's basically it. Welcome to Blacklight Summit. I'm excited to be here, and I think we'll pass it on now for some community updates.
Thank you, Patrick. Did you want me to share my screen, or would you like to just open up the slides there? That might be easier.
Yeah, I've got them opened up here.
Awesome.
You're good. I don't think this is plugged in.
All right.
You need power in with you.
Thank you, Patrick. That was great. And thank you, Ezra, for getting this up. So I'm Huna Khan. I'm also part of just to kind of give a quick intro, Patrick, Esme, and a bunch of other people who I hope will introduce themselves as well are all part of the committee that tried to put this together, led by Nikitas. And so we also wanted to set aside some time to talk a little bit about the communities whose applications are actually built on top of Blacklight. They can be incorporated as plugins and are trying to address various specific needs and incorporate different functionalities. So we'll spend a little time talking about ArcLight, GeoBlacklight, and Spotlight, and what each of those systems do and what their communities look like. So if you can go to the next slide, please, which is a really big slide that should just say ArcLight, and then you can go to the next one.
Oh, weird.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. So stealing text from the various websites is a great way to get the introductory content in. So this just says that ArcLight is a Blacklight-based discovery tool for displaying archival description and digitized archival material. So this is really about discovery of archival materials and building a system that can help us do that. And you can see the GitHub and website links if you want to find out more. And if you go to the next slide. Here are some examples. So one of the links on the previous slide has examples of various implementations. I picked the first 3 alphabetically. So this is just what was right on top. And you can see it's got the very first one just shows a little demo site that you can go and look at. There's one from, I think that's Duke, and then one from Connecticut's Archives Online. And they share some basic functionality, which is around seeing finding aids and discovering information about archival resources and various customizations that different sites have done. So you can all look at demos of that. If you go to the next slide, please. For recent work and updates, again, thank you to folks from the ArcLight community for helping fill out this slide. There was a fall 2023 community sprint that addressed bug fixes, accessibility, and implementation pain points. We've gone from 1.1 to 1.4 for releases this year. There's also an IMLS-funded ArcLight integration project that runs 2024 through 2026, which is focusing on direct integration of digital content in search and making that more feasible. easier connections to archive space with a plugin, and usability testing on indexing hierarchical archival data. And so there are also links in the slides directly, so you can always look at some of these, the sprint details and the project details in more depth. So if you go to the next slide, please. For the community, Patrick covered some of this already. The ArcLight community meetings are held quarterly, with the next one being on November 4th. If you want to find out more or communicate with people from the community, there is a Slack channel called ArcLight in the Code for Lib space, and there is an email group. So hopefully this is a good overview of ArcLight, but if anyone from the ArcLight community is on the call and would like to chime in with any other info, this would be a good opportunity. Don't make me pick you. Okay, thank you, Sean. All right, so and feel free to interrupt me if you have more to say. So we go to the next part. So that's a quick overview of ArcLight with hopefully enough info if you want to get into community details or code details on your own. So next up is GeoBlacklight, and again, this is in alphabetical order. This is not in any other preference, personal or professional. So I just listed them in order. So GeoBlacklight is next. And if you go to the next slide, so ArcLight's all about archival discovery. GeoBlacklight is really around geospatial content, so an open source software application for discovering geospatial content, which includes things like GIS data sites, web services, and digitized paper maps. There is a pretty robust website you can check out at the link, and the GitHub gives you information about GeoBlacklight itself. If you go to the parent org, which is GeoBlacklight, you'll find many other repositories that are also related in this ecosystem. So if we go to the next slide, again, a bunch of different screenshots. There is a link right on top that gives you examples for the various institutions that have implemented GeoBlacklight with, customizations ranging from what the map looks like to which specific facets they've used and other UI updates. So if we can go to the next slide, please. For recent work, two things to point out for this year. In May, in the University of Minnesota, there was the annual Geo for Lib Camp, which is an unconference that focuses on geospatial discovery and the use of GeoBlacklight, and includes big picture discussions as well as road mapping. And then we had a summer community sprint in August. Some of the big outputs from that was a tag release for version 5 alpha. And there was also work that included in that tag release around upgrading to Blacklight 8 and Bootstrap 5. There was work around trying to make the JavaScript and assets bundling approach basically work with the brave new world we live in with Blacklight 8. And Rails updates. And then there is also work on metadata updates and documentation. And Kieran, thank you for helping me put links in here. So there are links on the bottom right for the ongoing project board and version 5 project board if you want more details around what exactly was covered and what we're still working on. So if you go to the next slide, again, big shout to Karen, who is sort of actually our GeoBlacklight community manager. So GeoBlacklight is designed around a community metadata profile. So that's an important piece of how GeoBlacklight works and how the application works. There are various metadata application profiles for versions 4+. There's the OpenGeo metadata aardvark profile, which has additional fields and more granular information that it captures. In comparison to the earlier schema, which is called GeoBlacklight 1.0 and is applicable to versions 3 and earlier of GeoBlacklight. And if you want to see our metadata repositories where various institutions have uploaded their GeoBlacklight data or metadata, you can look in the OpenGeo metadata GitHub repository. So if you go to the next slide, for community, there are calls every month, so it's every second Wednesday. I did want to add there are various community roles. You can see I keep yelling out Karen's name. Karen helps facilitate a lot of this work. If you look at the Geo Blacklight website, there are actually other community roles that are also defined, with some that are open or asking for volunteers. So if you're interested, this would be a great opportunity. There are multiple work groups and interest groups, such as issue triage, governance, and georeferencing. And community sprints are held twice a year. So we had our summer one, and then we will have a winter one as well later. So that's a recap. Karen, to say your name the 5th time, do you have anything you'd like to add before we move on?
Hi, everybody. No, I think that was great, Huda. Good job.
Thank you. Okay. Now we can go to the next slide, which is Spotlight. Yay. Actually, go to the next one, please. So an overview of what Spotlight is. So like we've covered archival discovery under ArcLight, geospatial discovery under GeoBlacklight. Spotlight's really around exhibit and content. So it's open source software that enables librarians, curators, and other content experts to build feature-rich websites that showcase collections and objects from repository, uploaded items, or a combination of the two. It's basically allowing people to set up digital exhibits. So it takes the Blacklight infrastructure and kind of moves it up to say, you know, what if we could curate content and put together exhibits? And there's the GitHub for it. And if you go to the next slide, I will admit I did not use alphabetical ordering here. I literally picked the 2 that I knew off the top of my head. So this is Stanford and Cornell, examples of exhibit websites that use Spotlight under the hood. And if there are other examples, which I'm sure there are, please feel free to share them. Or if you really want to talk about one, there'll be time at the end of the presentation if you'd like. So if you go to the next slide. Recent work and update. So this year saw a lot of new activity, or sort of a restart on some activity that had happened earlier and had kind of lessened over the past 2 years. So we're having quarterly Spotlight community meetings, and we had some this year. Working groups have been assembled, including sustainability and accessibility plus UX. So there were preliminary discussions around this work earlier this year, and now these groups are forming goals and their own meeting schedule. There's been a Spotlight Council that's been formed for governance, and we're kicking off a community sprint next year for this. And there's ongoing development work at Stanford that relates to some of the sort of Spotlight infrastructure, which will get covered later during the institutional demo. So if we go to the next slide, please. Like I said, community meetings are held quarterly, and working group meetings are being scheduled as well. There's a wiki. Just a caveat here, there are updates required, and one of the issues that the Spotlight Council will address is when and how to update this website or this wiki. In the meantime, there are 2 different Slack channels, the Spotlight Service one, which is focused more around sort of the service community, product owners, et cetera, and Spotlight Development that's meant for more development-related questions. And there is an email group, which is also more focused on service community, but is open to anyone. So there are multiple ways that people can get in touch and look at updates that are happening. So if we go to the next slide, which I think this is it. If anyone from the Spotlight community, I know a few people are here, wants to kind of, say anything else about the work that's ongoing or the working group meetings, now would be a good time. I can see Jesse on my screen, but I'm trying to not be like, hey, do you want to say something?
I'll just say that it's kind of rejuvenated and it's really exciting right now. So if anyone's interested, we definitely are interested in getting more institutions involved. So I don't have anything beyond that.
Thank you. I think that was great. And I think if that's the last slide, which I think it is.
Yeah.
Then I can stop talking, which is always great for me. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Huda. All right, now we are going to